Emily Carter was once seen as a grieving daughter begging the world to help her find her mother's killer, but beneath the tears and viral TikToks lay a chilling secret. She was the one who had murdered both her parents. 17-year-old Emily Carter had never been the kind of girl people paid much attention to until the night her life changed forever. Her mother, Sarah Carter, a respected high school teacher, was found brutally murdered inside their quiet suburban home in Fairview. The crime shocked the neighborhood, a place where families left doors unlocked and children rode bikes freely without fear. Sarah's death did not just shatter a family, it shattered the illusion of safety the town had always clung to. Emily, still a high school senior, suddenly found herself in the center of a nightmare that seemed too big to comprehend. But instead of retreating into grief behind closed doors, she turned to the one place she knew would listen: social media. Within hours of the murder, Emily uploaded a tearful TikTok video. Her face was blotchy from crying, her words shaky as she begged strangers to help her find her mother's killer. The video spread faster than wildfire. Something about the trembling teenager's raw desperation struck a chord, and soon millions were watching. She described the crime in haunting detail, saying her mother had been taken from her in the most horrific way. Viewers flooded her comments with condolences, prayers, and offers to help. They called her brave, resilient, even heroic for facing her grief so openly. As the police continued their investigation quietly in the background, Emily became a public figure overnight, a daughter-turned symbol of justice in the digital age. Her family had once seemed ordinary. Her father, Michael, worked as an accountant with long hours and little excitement. Her mother was beloved by her students for her kindness, and Emily was just another teenager navigating high school drama. Now all of that normalcy was gone. In its place stood a mystery wrapped in blood and grief, one that the world was suddenly invested in solving. To the public, Emily was no longer just a grieving daughter. She was the voice of a crime that demanded answers, and her online crusade only amplified the tragedy. She began posting daily updates, each one dripping with sorrow and determination, making sure no one forgot her mother's face or the injustice of her death. The town of Fairview, once quiet and unremarkable, became the stage for a chilling mystery as more people tuned in to watch Emily's fight for answers. What no one knew then was that the story was far from simple, and the girl crying on camera was hiding secrets darker than anyone could imagine. Emily's TikTok campaign grew into something far bigger than anyone had anticipated. At first, it seemed like a daughter's desperate attempt to keep her mother's memory alive, but soon it evolved into a full-blown movement. Each video she posted carried a mixture of sorrow and urgency, and her audience responded by amplifying her voice. Hashtags demanding justice for Sarah Carter trended repeatedly, drawing millions of views from across the globe. Strangers created montages of Sarah's smiling photos, edited with dramatic music, while others speculated endlessly about suspects. Emily leaned into this attention, positioning herself as both a victim and an investigator, claiming she was doing the work the authorities were failing to do. Her videos became more elaborate over time. She filmed herself standing outside the crime scene, whispering about clues that didn't add up. She held up household objects she said police had overlooked, presenting them as possible evidence. She even suggested that suspicious vehicles had been seen circling the neighborhood in the weeks before the murder. Each theory she shared sparked wild discussions online, with her followers analyzing every frame as if they were detectives themselves. The more she posted, the more convinced people became that Emily was the only one truly fighting for justice. While her online following grew, the detectives working the case felt the pressure of a spotlight they hadn't asked for. They received calls from amateur sleuths who claimed to have cracked the case based on Emily's videos. News crews camped outside the Carter home, eager to capture any glimpse of the girl whose grief had made her a viral star. Local newspapers dubbed her the detective daughter, and national outlets picked up her story, painting her as a courageous teen determined to expose the truth. Donations poured in to support her supposed investigation, and supporters sent her messages calling her inspirational. To her audience, she wasn't just a teenager anymore, she was a symbol of resilience. But behind the constant stream of videos, cracks in her story began to emerge. Some viewers noticed that Emily always seemed to know intimate details of the case that hadn't been made public. Others questioned how she had such quick access to supposed evidence. Still, the majority dismissed these doubts, clinging to the emotional narrative she spun. The more attention Emily received, the more her performance grew convincing. What began as grief had transformed into a carefully curated image. And while the world admired her, the truth was waiting quietly beneath the surface, darker than anyone scrolling through their phones could imagine. 3 months after the brutal murder of Sarah Carter, the Carter family faced another devastating blow. Michael Carter, who had retreated into silence and work following his wife's death, was found dead in his car at a quiet park on the outskirts of town. A single gunshot wound ended his life, and once again, the peaceful community of Fairview was shaken to its core. The news spread quickly, and just like before, it was Emily who stepped into the spotlight. She returned to TikTok, her face pale, her eyes red, claiming that the same person who killed her mother had now taken her father. The video was heartbreaking to many, and within hours, it went viral. The public, already invested in her story, now saw Emily as a girl who had lost both parents in a matter of months to what appeared to be the same relentless killer. Emily's TikTok videos grew darker and more emotional. She said she felt like someone was watching her, that she was no longer safe at home, and that whoever had killed her family might come for her next. Her shaky voice and empty expression convinced millions of people that she was in real danger. Her followers rushed to support her, sharing her videos everywhere and demanding that the police act faster. Hashtags calling for justice filled social media again, and Emily's audience grew even larger than it had after her mother's death. Her story was no longer just local news, it was being talked about around the world. But while the internet mourned with her, detectives began to notice troubling signs. Just like with her mother's death, Emily seemed to know too many details about her father's murder before police had even confirmed them. Her emotional videos looked less like real grief and more like staged performances. Investigators quietly started to look deeper into her life, checking her phone records, her spending, and her internet searches. Behind the viral clips, a very different picture of Emily was beginning to appear. The community, however, still saw her as a victim. People held candlelight vigils for Michael Carter, and Emily stood at the center, holding photos of her parents while reporters snapped pictures. To the public, she looked like a tragic figure, the daughter who had lost everything. But for detectives, her tears seemed forced, and her posts felt fake. Step by step, the truth was becoming harder to ignore. When police checked her computer, they found shocking searches. Emily had looked up how to act heartbroken, how to fake a crime scene, and how to clean away gunpowder. These searches proved she had been preparing to play the role of grieving daughter long before her father's death. Forensic experts then discovered that the bullet that killed Michael came from the same gun that killed Sarah. Suddenly, both crimes were tied together. Emily had claimed to be a bystander, but evidence showed otherwise. Records revealed she had bought ammunition weeks earlier and had even visited a shooting range in secret. Neighbors added to the growing suspicions. They told investigators about loud fights between Emily and her parents. Sarah had threatened to take away Emily's phone, and Michael had worried about her behavior and her obsession with TikTok. What seemed like normal family arguments now looked like warning signs. Detectives replayed Emily's videos, no longer seeing them as cries for help but as a cover-up. She knew too much too soon. She showed too little shock at critical moments, and she appeared more interested in attention than in grieving. Investigators finally realized they weren't hunting a mysterious killer. The murderer had been there all along, playing the part of a victim and fooling millions in the process. The morning of her arrest felt like a movie scene. Police cars lined the quiet street, lights flashing as neighbors watched in shock. Emily, who had been posting about feeling unsafe only hours earlier, woke up to the sound of banging on her door. Within minutes, she was in handcuffs. Photos of her arrest spread everywhere, stunning her followers. People who had once admired her felt betrayed. The truth soon came out. Emily had killed her mother after an argument about strict rules and her phone use. When her father grew suspicious and considered exposing her lies, she killed him too. The hidden gun tied both murders together and destroyed her carefully built story. The world was horrified, not only by the crimes, but by the way Emily used social media to hide them and gain fame. Supporters who once sent her love now filled her comments with anger. Old videos of her crying were replayed, but this time people noticed how rehearsed her voice sounded. News outlets called her case a terrifying example of how easily the internet can be fooled. Emily had not only killed her parents, she had turned their deaths into viral content. As Emily sat in jail waiting for trial, the town of Fairview struggled to understand how they had missed the truth. Vigils that once honored the family became quiet reminders of how appearances can deceive. Emily Carter's story turned into a warning. Not every tear online is real. And sometimes the person asking for justice is hiding the darkest secret of all.